Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Schultz. I will be chairing tonight's Finance Committee meeting, and we'll begin with a roll call starting with Ms. Lowe.
Jennifer Lemon here.
Ross Whiting present.
Leah Mulhern present.
Charles Riddell present.
Mia Blitzstein present. Robin Murphy present.
Daniel Schultz present. And then the next item, business, is approval of the May minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Williams and Ms. Loman, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Sweigard.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. I have 50 slides to go over this evening.
I
don't plan. A lot of the slides are repeats last month when we talked about the proposed final budget. As you know, on the 17th, we are planning to approve the final budget. So just wanted to provide some more context around some of the expenditure items. Typically around Montgomery County and Cheltenham, and our experience versus that of surrounding school districts. So I won't go over every slide in detail. First, we'll go over the interim financial statements through May. No surprises there. We review them every month. I could hit a recorder and play the same thing from last month. Then we'll take a quick look at the proposed final budget again. We already talked about the traffic calming study last meeting. And we'll open the right presentation first.
That looks very familiar. Almost literally.
Everyone's a little off. I got just. I just.
But before we can go through.
At the start of.
This
Practice science.
We've already covered it.
I could have attempted to go through the whole presentation.
Testing this.
All right, final budget overview, as I mentioned, a little bit of discussion around the state and the approvals that are to be done at the legislative meeting on the 10th and the 17th.
I have a quick question about that. We're having a legislative meeting the 17th?
A special meeting on the 17th.
Special meeting on the 17th. Thank you.
Where the
And the detail, I think you'll be providing more detail, but the idea is that gives a little bit of additional time to know about what the state is doing with their budget.
Okay, I wanted to double check. Thank you.
Yes.
The more time, the better. It should be one legislative item. That would be the budget and the tax rate itself.
And it would occur before educational affairs.
Yeah.
All right, so looking at our balance sheet, year over year, we're still showing a healthy cash balance, which is always a good sign. That's where we'll end up at the end of the year. Looking at our total revenue and expenditures, we have collected $5.7 million more in revenues year to year, and we have expended $6 million more year over year in expenditures through the end of May. Nice to say our audit draft has been released. However, our final audit has not been released, so we can confidently lock in our fund balance at $27.9 million, and we were able to transfer $4.75 million into cap reserve for capital projects as a result of last year's of financial results. All right, so looking at detail of our revenue and expenditures year over year, our tax collections, our local taxes, our interest income continues to drive our local source revenue increases. On the state source side, we do have some timing issues about when we collected our state revenue. A lot of our state revenue came right on May 31st this year, and it's supposed to come on June 1st. So we got it a day early. It falls in a different month. And you'll see some of that throughout the rest of the slide here. Year over year, our expenditures increased from 112 million to 117, almost 118 million. This is due to several factors. One, the settlement, the CA contract, and contractual increases, which are in our regular education line item and our special education line item. We're still seeing more growth in our special education placement tuitions and in our special education services. This right now is one of our fastest growing expenditure line items. And we still have this reoccurring $900,000 difference in operations from the setup of EPIC and from the resolution of Elkins Park and some of the HVAC issues at that building. Any questions on this slide before I move on?
Any questions from the board?
So at the end of the day, year over year, we get about the same net change in fund balance, which is a very good sign. Last year we ended with a $6 million surplus. Hopefully we could have that kind of financial success this year. All right, looking at this graphically, our two lines are set to converge next month. Hopefully they don't quite converge. Hopefully we end up with a surplus, but you can see we're moving in that direction very quickly now. We don't have much more in the terms of anticipated revenue collection through the end of the year. And year over year, looking at our largest local tax collections, our real estate taxes, we collected 1.5 million more than last year, which is in line with the tax increase we set. We still have very strong earned income tax collections. We still have a strong real estate transfer tax collections, and our delinquent tax collection is in line with prior years. And the most surprising number is still the earnings on investments figure. We're still due to collect more than $3 million investments, partially due to investment strategy and mostly due to the prime rate not dropping as much as anticipated at the beginning of the year. Any questions on local revenues?
When you do go back to that slide, I just wanted to highlight that earnings on investment, 3 million. When we are getting to the end of the year and looking at surplus, I think it's just important for us to remember that that is not structural income that we can rely on as it is for the long term. It's nice, but I recommend we think of it as one-time funds essentially. So when we're thinking about upcoming tax increases, thinking about future budgets, that's not money we should bank on.
Yeah, I think right here you can see we have
There's the
less cash, and the prime rate was 0.0071 or something. We didn't have the same amount of revenue out of that as we do now. And we've done, and probably repeated this before, we've done as much work as possible on timing out our cash flows, maximizing excess cash that can be invested. I think we did a good job of timing the top rate and pushing out some investments 2 years so that we could capture this high rate as long as possible, knowing that we weren't going to draw down a lot of it until 2026. So I think that's part of the reason why we're able to keep this as high as it's been. All right, so last meeting we took a look at the proposed final budget, and the proposed total revenues were $140 million, along with the total proposed expenditures. Looking at a 3% tax increase to close the budget. The final budget, as mentioned earlier, is to be approved at a special meeting on June 17th at 7 o'clock, immediately preceding our Ed Affairs meeting. I included the slide with the detail. The entire proposed final budget is on the district's website. It's posted in its required form by PDE Form 2028, which includes more detail on what makes up all of these categories. That is open to the public. is also available at the front desk in the administrative building. And I'm going back to this note slide and focusing on what's in red. So at the state level, we're eagerly waiting on what we thought was to be additional money funding the Ready to Learn block grant at the state level, which the governor had proposed an additional $818 million. Now discussion is seen to be moving away from the Ready to Learn block grant and increasing the basic and special education subsidy line items, which makes a lot of sense as the basic ed subsidy, it follows the new funding formula, the equitable funding. So word on the street is that's where new monies will come in versus the Ready to Learn block grant, which we had talked about in the past. And the other talking point worth discussing since last time we met was the strength of talks around doing something with charter school tuitions. Capping it at $8,000 seems very aggressive, but doing something to limit charter school fund balances seems to be much more popular. So the word I got when I reached out to various sources at the state was that a lot of the conversations around the budget just began on the 2nd as the state legislature reconvened just yesterday. So hopefully we'll get a lot more information in the next 2 weeks. We're ready to approve the budget and have more confidence about what these two items will materialize. Last month, we reviewed our largest expense increases within the budget. We talked about how over the past 15 years, pension costs has been driving school district finances. I did add one additional line item, and that was special education tuitions. So we could see the direction they've been moving in recent past. You can see immediately before COVID, they were trending up. COVID dropped a lot of attendance at these charter school institutions, and now we're starting to see a climb again in charter school, special education tuitions. And these are non-charter schools, these are purely approved private schools and placements. So this is what Cheltenham's trend looks like. This is what the county's trend looks like. So we look at our starting point in 2014 of $30 million spend within the county, and that has ballooned to $50 million, which is almost exactly the same curve we're seeing. So our experience is not out of the norm. This is a 66% growth in 10 years. So going back to cyber school tuitions and a proposed $8,000 cyber tuition cap, what does that mean for Cheltenham School District? In capping our charter school expense, it's this line on the bottom. It is, you can see during COVID was when that number exploded. Of our 130 students who attend charter schools, that is brick and mortar and cyber charter schools, 90% attend cyber charters. So roughly 120 of our charter school students are all attending virtually. If they put a cap on all cyber charter tuition, regular ed and special ed, a flat cap would result in a little over $2 million in savings to Cheltenham School District. Before I move on, any questions on expenditures?
Any questions from the board? I have one question on cyber charters. Roughly speaking, the COVID jump wasn't an increase in tuition rates. It was an increase in enrollment. Is that?
That's correct. Yes.
And how many? What is the order of students that are enrolled in cyber charters in Cheltenham?
About 120
About 100
cyber students.
My last question is, do we know who those students are? Like, does the district have information about which students have chosen to enroll in cyber charters?
Yes. So when a student enrolls at a cyber charter school, they, just like our enrollment process, they're required to provide the residency information to that charter school, who in turn provides it back to us, at which point they're verified through our registration department, just like we would any student who registers at Cheltenham School District. In a nutshell, that's the process. So We have a listing of every student, where they reside, what charter school they attended, along with when they started, and how many days they attend.
Thank you. And part of why I ask is in the past, and frankly, before the COVID jump, one topic of discussion was, are there things that we could do as a district to try to reach out to students who have enrolled in cyber charter schools in particular, to bring them, to encourage them to come back and market to them, whatever it might be. And if this doesn't go through, it strikes me that we are talking about a large enough number of dollars that could have a real impact on our budget, that it might be worth reflecting on that next as a board over the next year, depending on how that pans out. But thank you.
Revisiting this slide, which is our Act One, our historical Act One index, our historical market value, personal income aid ratio per student, and Cheltenham School District tax increases over the past 15 years. If you recall, the market value personal income aid ratio, the lower the number, the better the number. You can see that number has been climbing over the past number of years. And if you recall, the Act One index is primarily a measure of state and federal information regarding salary movement across both agencies. And with that information in mind, we move to market value aid ratio trends. This line is Cheltenham School District that I will trace in red. You can see every district, almost every district, one outlier, is experiencing very similar in terms of its market value aid ratio. Ours has a little bit of a curve to it, but the trend is upward amongst most of our surrounding school districts in southern Montgomery County. And graphically looking at our Act One index versus our district tax rate increase over the years, you can see that this blue line is essentially a measure of wage movement across the state and the federal government, and for the most part within the last 10 years, the district has either been below or matched that Act One index, which is a sign of great effort on the school district to control costs and to be financially prudent with taxpayer dollars. Before I move on, any questions on those two slides?
Mr. Riddell Williams?
Just going back to the previous slide about the market value aid ratio, just for my overall understanding, one more time, this ratio is comparing market value, but also the aid need of our student population as well. But what defines that is it free or reduced lunch? Is it like, what is the actual?
This is purely a measure of a combination of your taxable assessment, your real estate tax assessment, versus the number of students, and your personal income per family versus the number of students.
Personal income.
So it measures family wealth and real estate tax value. So if you're in a district that has a lot of commercial or retail space, it could drive down your market value personal income ratio. So it's a measure of those two factors: wealth of students and wealth of district. Sorry, I live in these numbers.
No, it's great. Thank you.
So the lowest you can get is a 0.1, and there's one district. Some can actually go below that. There's just so much on a per pupil basis. There's so much wealth. So that factor plays into how much state subsidy we get, reimbursements from the state for certain grants, financial support, financial aid. It factors into a lot of different things. But I didn't want everyone to panic when they see this number approaching 0.4, realizing in the broader context, almost everyone's moving in that direction. So it's either a measure of those ratios getting worse, or it's a measure of the benchmark not moving in line with inflation or something along those
Follow-up, is the threshold still 0.4?
Yes.
It is still 0.4? Okay.
Yeah, so you can see in this year, the following year after 0.4, you get an adjusted.
Got that.
Any other questions on those two slides?
I should know, but I don't. Are we, is there any other slides on Act One index or okay, so my question is, do we have a sense at this point of what other business managers are proposing to their school districts? Do we have a sense of what other school districts are likely to be passing this on overall?
So this is a listing of all of the proposed final budget information I can find. Now, proposed doesn't mean final, so you can see a lot of districts are just proposing the Act One index as a plug. There's a couple finals in there.
This is exactly, thank you. I should have just waited once.
That's okay.
Oh, that's okay.
So looking at a 5-year and a 10-year change in the tax rate, as we point out every year, Cheltenham within the last 5 and 10 years has done a nice job of not increasing taxes at the same rate as other school districts. We're looking to continue that trend. I feel more and more confident every day that we won't need a 3% tax rate. On June 17th, we still have the opportunity to change our proposed budget as long as the tax rate is less or the expenditures are less. So hopefully we can hold that. The final budget to be proposed on the 17th will be posted on board docs 24 hours before the meeting at 7 o'clock on Monday night. Including for reference is the Act One timeline and our entire budget timeline throughout the year that we follow. And before I move on to legislative items, any more questions on the budget?
Just a thank you, which will be echoed again on the 17th, but thank you so much for the amount of work that you put into this and Dr. Scriven as well.
And to your lay people explanations.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
So on the 10th, we have housekeeping items. So first, we're approving our banking institutions. We primarily use the PA School Liquid Asset Fund and the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust. These are state agencies of pooled money that is fully collateralized. So very, 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 very safe. One of the safest vehicles you can park your money in. We typically don't use private banks as much as possible due to fees and returns. Also approval of myself and my assistant to authorize investments. All of our investments are extraordinarily safe. U.S. Treasuries. We don't even delve into expanded blue chip corporate bonds, which I believe we're allowed to by law. We keep everything in the safest investments possible as required by school code. Approval to participate in cooperative purchasing. There are several agencies out there, the largest of which is the PA Department of General Services. If you're around this building, you've heard the term co-stars many times. That's the PA state bid that we piggyback off of to help set a price range for what we should be paying for goods and supplies. But there are also numerous other options that we can use, and we do use. PEPM is probably the second biggest cooperative purchasing group. That's for technology, and that's done out of the Central Services Intermediate or Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit in Central Pennsylvania. Approval of purchasing agents would be myself, my assistant Nelson, and Mike Oswald, our purchasing personnel. And approval of our school district insurance. So the largest increase this year is in our property coverage, and we quoted this out with several companies, but we still came back with a $50,000 increase in property and umbrella coverage just due to the replacement cost of all things property. And by property, I mean real estate buildings. And the last item for approval on the 10th are lunch prices. We had a surplus again last year in food service, so there's no reason why we would have to increase lunch prices as part of our effort to run our food service program as nonprofit oriented. Our goal is to keep lunch prices down as much as possible. So again, since I've been here, we haven't increased lunch prices. I don't know how many years in a row, so they will be the same. And also approval of Whitson's again for renewal for next year, for the 25-26 school year. Any questions on board items for next week?
How many years remains service renewal? I know we're able to renew up to 4 times. How many do you know?
When I started the 22-23 school year was year 1. So it's either this coming year or next year. We should potentially look at doing an RFP again. Thank you. On the 17th, if things holds true, hold steady, I anticipate this will not be the tax rate and this will not be the millage, but this is what the action looks like to approve a real estate transfer tax rate, mercantile tax rate, our net profits tax rate, and our LST tax rate. All of these remain unchanged year over year. As you recall, again, the more homestead money was released. That is the gambling money used to offset real estate taxes across the state. We got roughly $400,000 this year, which is a good thing, up to $5 million. And depending on what the tax rate is, that roughly translates to around $650 per taxpayer who participates in the homestead farmstead program. We approve installment payment timelines, and we approve collection timelines, discount, and penalty timelines as well on the 17th. And that is it. Is there any questions on the 17th?
Any questions from the board on any items? And then we haven't gone to the public yet, so are there any questions from the public? Mr. Riddell Williams.
Just a statement. I don't know how many folks are out there listening, but happy to hear that the legislature is back talking about our budget. So just a plug here for us to contact our local representatives and even those outside of our locality, because we may have commonality with our neighbors, but maybe not so much with our far off neighbors. And I think there's an opportunity for us to advocate, not just for ourselves, but for public education in the state of Pennsylvania. So please do so. Whomever is able to hear the recording here, but also for my fellow board members and everyone in the room, this is the opportunity for us to advocate and put ourselves in a position to potentially be heard on the floor in the form of a vote.
Okay.
In
Thank
support
you,
of
Mr.
us.
Riddell Williams.
Yep.
And to put a fine point on our potential role there, over the coming weeks, as there are events in the public, opportunities to speak with constituents, this is a very relevant thing to bring up in a one-on-one relationship where we can, because the more people who know, the more voices can be put out there. Thank you. Were there any raised hands? I assume not, but.
I do not see any. I would just point out and to follow up with Charles, the one topic item is cyber charter reform. Pennsylvania Department of Education posts a lot of information about school finance. And if you look at fund balances and residual monies held onto by school districts, some of the cyber charter schools are holding onto hundreds of billions of dollars fund balance that could be released and spent by school districts immediately on students across the state, not just our district, but all school districts.
Great point.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
All right, yeah, I think there are no further comments. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Murphy first and Ableton second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.